Hi, it's Davina. I'm in my Keep Trying t-shirt. This is a whole episode that's an homage to some of my favorite YouTube channels, specifically Ann Reardon's How to Cook That. And today I want you to imagine a cake that is delicious and sweet and just wonderful. But it is so ugly, you couldn't give it away for free. Behold, this is that very cake. I volunteer at the food bank, and the various grocery stores in town often donate us all sorts of products as they are starting to time out. And usually, when they give us cakes, they have a plastic dome over the top. This particular one, though, arrived with a whole bunch of other cakes, and they decided to saran wrap it, smushing the entire thing. And we only hold on to these things for a short period of time at the food bank, and we try to give them away to people who could genuinely use the food. And, you know, people have birthdays and stuff to celebrate, but in the time that this cake was at the food bank, we couldn't give it away to anyone for free. And it was getting to the point that it was about to be shipped off to the hog farm for it to be fed to pigs. And the pig farmer has told us whenever there's desserts in there, the pigs will dig down into the bottom and eat the desserts first, and then they'll think about eating the stuff that got frosting on it, and then after that they'll think about eating the leftover squash and spinach and string beans and the like. Well, Ann Reardon on How to Cook That, wonderful Australian YouTuber, has cake rescues. And I mentioned to my fellow volunteers that it looked like something that Ann Reardon could probably save. And so, as I was leaving, the other volunteers said, well, you know what, if you can save this cake and turn it into a YouTube thing, maybe it could get more people to look at the ugly cakes in their lives and possibly save them. So let's just see what we've got going on here. Okay, so some of the raspberry stuff has peeled off. This is not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting more frosting to come off, but okay, that's very jello-y. That's I don't know. Oh, and now I can see the cake inside is a yellow cake. So I'm going to get a few bowls, and I'm going to scrape off the frosting, and I'm going to see what we've got when it comes to the cake layer. All right, here is our naked cake, and it looks like there's a seam here, and that it is actually, yes, it is a filled cake, but I don't think I can take off this upper part of it without completely destroying that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely change this. I'm going to use one of Ann Reardon's cake saving techniques, and I'm going to make a chocolate shell that I'm then going to add in whipped cream and more berry filling. Maybe I'll make it an ice cream cake, and then chunks of this upper part will go in, and then this bottom part will kind of make a plug in the bottom part of the chocolate shell. Then I'll invert it, pop it out, and we will have a lovely cake. Maybe. We'll see how this goes. All right, so I went shopping after reviewing Ann Reardon's video, and what I've decided to do is I'm going to reuse some of this frosting just to coat the inside of the chocolate shell, and then I might take off this upper layer, and when I put those chunks in, add in some of the frosting at the same time. But I'm also going to layer it with some raspberry ice cream, raspberry swirl ice cream, to just enhance that raspberry swirl. And I wanted more of the raspberry gel. And so at first I bought fresh raspberries because I remembered Ann Reardon had fresh strawberries in hers, but then I got them home and remembered, wait, raspberries don't dip well into chocolate, because instead of being one fruit like a strawberry, these are actually a whole bunch of little tiny fruits that like to fall apart. So I'm going to use these as well as some frozen raspberries, and I'm going to make more of a raspberry sauce gel. I'm going to melt this down, mix those in, possibly add in a little bit more of a modified cornstarch to make the gooey stuff that you find in raspberry swirl things. Now for the chocolate shell, I decided to go with almond bark, which is not chocolate. You can get it chocolate flavored, but it's still not chocolate. This has the vegetable fats instead of just the cocoa fats, which means it doesn't bloom like chocolate does. So you don't need to temper this at all. It'll just do its thing. I decided to go with white chocolate because I've got a white cake. If I had had a chocolate cake, I might have gone with chocolate flavored almond bark, but still almond bark because it's easy. And I then also got these little melties in pink as something. I think I'll do a drizzle over the top of my cake. Now, why am I not showing you a cake pan here? I watched her video again, and it looked like she had a silicone cake pan, a really deep one, a silicone bowl. I don't have a silicone bowl, but I needed to buy a bundt cake pan because I foolishly decided I didn't need a bundt cake pan, and I gave it to my sister. And well, with COVID-19 and all the family gatherings where I could normally beg back my bundt pan canceled, I needed to buy one. So I bought a silicone one on Amazon, and it should be arriving, well, tomorrow. So yeah, we'll get back to filming this in a bit, but I've rewrapped the cake so it won't dry out before I have made the chocolate shell that it will go into. I'm going to saran wrap the top of this frosting so it also doesn't get crunchy. I'm going to make up my raspberry sauce so it will be cooled by tomorrow when I actually try to do this. Now, this is a little side note. I am not Ann Reardon. Don't have the experience and the training that she has. I don't have the equipment that she has. I have enthusiasm. I think back in, was it high school or middle school, my mom paid for me to have Wilton cake decorating classes at the local craft store when I was growing up. And I did that one summer. I was the only kid in that class. Everybody else was full-grown women. So that's my experience. I did some cake decorating when I was in high school, and then all that knowledge has atrophied. So this will be fun. All right, I'm gonna turn on my stovetop. I'm going to put in my frozen berries first. Am I measuring? Not really. Most sauce recipes that I've seen, it's for every 1 cup of raspberries, you add 1 cup of sugar. Seems like a lot of sugar to me. So, what is this taking me in real time? Day 1, get an ugly cake. Day 2, strip that ugly cake so you can see what you're working with, and go out grocery shopping to get the ingredients for fixing it. Also on that day, some point later, make a bubbling pot of very tasty raspberry goo. And stop. So, so far, I'm 2 days in, but really I've only spent maybe an hour and a half working on this. So, I mean, if you take out shopping time. So, if you already have the cake, and you already have all the ingredients, and you already have the baking pan, let's pin it right now as we are about 1 hour in, because there was a bunch of running around that I didn't really need to do if I had had everything in place. So 1 hour. But then you have to give the raspberry sauce enough time to cool, because you don't want it melting through everything that you're working on. So I think this is a 2-day project, unless you're buying your raspberry filling. I mean, who wants to do that? So plan on taking a whole day to do something like this. But so far, let's say with cleanup time and everything, we're an hour and a half in, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. It's more than 1 day. It's actually almost a week later. You see, when I brought home that smushed up cake, that evening I had selected the silicone cake mold that I had wanted to use for it. Kind of looks like a red Jello. I might make Jello in this later. I thought I had hit the purchase button. On Saturday, when it hadn't shown up yet, I looked at the status of my purchase and then realized I hadn't actually purchased it. So I hit the button, and yeah, it arrived yesterday. So it's now 5 days later in the morning, and I'm going to finally make the shell. And I'm a little bit concerned about the cake that I have stripped of frosting, saran wrapped, and popped into the fridge. Now, I don't have any chopped onions or anything like that in the fridge that would make it get a funkiness to it. But just be aware, if you have chopped onion, stinky cheeses, potent smelling leftovers hanging out in your fridge, those flavors can make it inside other things. We're just gonna work on making the chocolate shell out of almond bark and maybe swirling in some of this pink to make it look pretty. All right, always follow the directions. The directions for these pink ones, it says to melt in the microwave safe container or disposable decorating bag, microwave 1 package of candy at 50% power or defrost setting for 1 minute. Stir thoroughly and knead bag. Continue to microwave at 50% power for 30-second intervals, blah, 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 blah. This says melting in the microwave. Place in microwave safe bowl, melt on full power for 1 minute, stir, return for 15-second intervals, stirring each time. Now, this is in pretty big chunks, the almond bark, so I'm going to chop that up before I melt it. I need to get out some parchment paper to flip this onto, and maybe something to prop this up so it won't stick to whatever it's dripping into. Yeah. Let me get that supplies and then we'll continue. All right, so this is the setup that I have for draining out the chocolate onto some parchment paper. There's the bowl that's going to give it support while I'm dribbling the coating in there. And I've set up some skewers to help it dribble through. I could have gone with one of my cooling racks, but my cooling racks have hinges and feet and a very fine mesh to them, and would be really difficult to clean. And these skewers are going to be much easier. So this is the setup that I'm working with. So now it's going to be following the directions first for the pink and then for the white. Hey, you know what? This isn't bad. Okay, I didn't get enough chocolate up the size for the amount of filling that I gave it, but you know what? That could just be covered with a little bit of frosting and some fresh fruit. Looks like I've got a couple thin spots, but I think that worked. So we'll see how it slices later. Probably going to need to use a warm knife. Okay, let's try to slice this and also talk about my mistakes. So I only put chocolate to about there in the mold, and I really should have gone all the way up if I was going to fill up that much. If I was just going to stop at a shortcake like that, fine, fill it a little bit less. That would have been great. But I didn't do that. I also didn't quite get enough chocolate on the inside of this bundt cake mold. So that was another mistake of mine. So I should have had this as one single shell all the way through. Instead, I filled it up, realized I had, had extra filling, and then tried to make more shell, and that's where this seam here has happened. So that's avoidable. Next time, make the full chocolate shell, and then I won't have this crack line around there. Second off, I overfilled this. I probably didn't need to do any of the ice cream layer with as much raspberry jelly filling that I had. And it looked like a small cake when it was all smushed in the saran wrap, but actually in this bundt cake pan, it was pretty much enough to fill this as it was, particularly if I had put in any of the original frosting, which I did not. I still have a bowl of the original frosting hanging out my refrigerator. What am I going to do with it? I don't know. So I should have worked more on the chocolate and then done the filling of the cake. That's not what happened. So what I've got here is a thing of nice hot water that I've used to warm up this knife. And I'm going to try to slice this cake. Okay, it's stiff because it's been in the freezer, but oh, well, now it's cracking. Okay. Oh, that was exciting. And that's just one cut, and I need two to get a slice out. Okay, second cut. Okay. And it's hit something really hard and started to curve. Yeah. Okay, so it looks prettier, but I'm not actually able to slice this cake. Maybe because it's too cold. But if I let it get too warm, then that ice cream layer is going to melt. The ice cream was definitely a mistake. But I can always just crumble this up, put it in bowls, and top it with whipped cream. That's how it's gonna work. Well, that was fun, and I would say it's not even a complete waste of time, even though my first attempt at doing this cake rescue was a failure. I still had a fun time, got to learn some new techniques. I think I will practice this in the future. Ice cream is a little bit too stiff to cut. If you want to have a thin enough chocolate crust to be able to cut through it, you've got to have not super soft, but softer cake on the inside. That's something that I learned. Also, make sure you do the chocolate shell really well first off, instead of trying to do it in a couple of different pieces, and do not overstuff. So, learning experience was had by me and hopefully by you, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope this has inspired you to try your own cake rescues, maybe not complete fails, as I have done, but as long as it tastes good in the end, that's all that matters. Have a good day.